Hi, my name is Angela Merino. I was born in the Philippines and came to the United States when I was 10 years old. I have two sisters and a brother. I speak another language, which is Tagalog, which is a Filipino language. I grew up in a home where my parents stressed the value and importance of hard work, getting good education, and living a comfortable life. Growing up in the Philippines during my primary years shaped me to strive for success and value the things I have and work hard for the things that I want. My parents worked hard in their own respective ways to provide for me and my siblings. My father was a nurse and he worked abroad mostly in the Middle East for the first 7 years of my life. He worked contractually in a hospital in Dubai, Saudi Arabia, and Libya. My mother was a stay-at-home mom. But despite my father's absence due to his work, I was raised in a multi-generational home with my grandma, which is from my mom's side. I was raised in a so my grandma too has a big influence in the values and beliefs I carry with me. She embedded the importance of womanhood, but during her time, womanhood is what she defines as gender role of a woman as being a good wife and a mother. She was not able to go to school during her younger years, so she emphasized the importance of education as a woman. That is something I value the most. The fact that my grandma did not get a chance to go to school or even had a choice to go to school. But with me, with my siblings and I, she wanted to make sure that we had a voice in the society, and that's why I prioritize, yes, being a good wife and a good mom, but also a woman with career of my choice and perseverance. My grandma passed away about 10 years ago, but I carry her woman empowerment with me every day. So after coming to the United States at a young age, I practically grew up in Queens, New York, where I experienced a lot of diversity and met a lot of classmates from different backgrounds. The Philippines is located in Asia, but we have a lot of influence from other countries who colonized us, particularly the Spaniards who colonized us for many years. Therefore, most of the last names of people in the Philippines are of Spanish influenced. Mine, for example, was Palma, which was my last name before I got married. So most of the time in school, I was mistaken for being Spanish. And because a lot of my classmates and even some of my teachers were not familiar where the Philippines is located. I remember when I was in high school, I told people that I'm Asian. They looked at me and say, "You don't look like one because your last name sounds Spanish and your eyes are not as chinky as someone from China or Japan." I did not understand much of it then, but it did make me question, how much Asian am I? It's not something I question now, but it was definitely a questioning of my identity during that point of my life. This was mostly in elementary and high school. Despite that, I certainly upheld my Filipino culture through traditions, food, big family gatherings, music, religious beliefs, and overall strong family ties and connection. So this PowerPoint, the pictures that you see here are kind of like some of the food that we like to enjoy, the flag, and all of the things about being Filipino. Fast forward to now, I'm married to my husband of almost 10 years, and he was born here in the US, but his mother is from Nicaragua and his father is from Ecuador, which makes our children mixed because of their Filipino side, Nicaraguan, and Ecuadorian side. Whenever I fill out their race and ethnicity, any paperwork that they have to fill out for school or anything like that, I put them as other because they don't really just fall in one of the box options to check. Anyway, why this is important to share for me is because I'm emphasizing to my kids that they don't have to conform to what society wants to identify them as. I tell them they can embrace both cultures, values, and the beliefs that their father and I strive to show them. Above all else, the biggest cultural influence that I and my husband carry from his side of the family and my side of the family is our strong family ties. We uphold the strong value that family comes first because after all, we instill the importance of respect, hard work, and kindness to others. So the person I had a privilege to interview was a previous coworker of mine named Dee. This interview took place last Friday via Zoom. I decided to interview her because I feel like we have a lot of similarities in our culture, attitudes, and beliefs embracing our roots. During the interview, she shared that she was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Her father is from Puerto Rico and her mother is born here in the US, but has some family lineage from France. During the interview, she shared that she only grew up with her mother, and her grandmother was around too most of her younger years. She was practically raised with a home full of women in her life. All of her younger years until she was in high school, she did not fully know much about her Puerto Rican side because she only has her mom and her grandma. So she didn't really meet much of her dad's side of the family until she was in high school, like her aunt, like her freshman in high school, like her aunts and her cousins. So in her younger years, she would tell people that she is half Puerto Rican, but it was also confusing for her to truly identify herself as one because she did not speak Spanish nor knew much about Puerto Rican culture. So fast forward to her high school years, she finally met some of her dad's side of the family and she started learning more about Puerto Rico from her aunts and her cousins. So she stated that it was an eye-opening experience for her to know part of her identity that her mother could really not explain to her at the time. So she got to know more about being Puerto Rican. She learned the importance of of strong family ties, cooking authentic meals, listening to music, learning dances, and overall just spending time with people she loves. Now, as an adult, Dee defines her cultural experience as something she is grateful to have learned and a part of her identity that she truly embraces now. She now takes Spanish class so she can be more fluent and understands it more. She's gone to Puerto Rico a few times and have met some of her dad's side of the family. And she wants to continue learning what it means to be Puerto Rican. And hopefully, it is something she can pass on when she has her kids in the future. Overall, we had a really good conversation about our culture, and I feel like I learned so much more about her through this cultural interview. So from this interview, the cross-cultural comparison that we have is that I learned so much. So this picture is, the food and all the music and the Puerto Rican flag. So with our cross-cultural differences and similarities, I made this Venn diagram. I learned that we share similar views when it comes to prioritizing our strong family values. Her, learning about her Puerto Rican side, and obviously me with, being Filipino. We love our authentic food and big family gatherings, which we share similarly. Her and I also have similar upbringing, as she was also primarily raised by her mother and her maternal grandmother, which is, the woman empowerment of that too. She was heavily influenced by the women in her life, which is very similar to me. She mentioned in her interview that the influence her mother and grandma have on her definitely also shaped her to prioritize achieving the things she can achieve as a woman. She and I also share the same identity struggles, when we experienced in our younger years, where she herself did not feel like she could identify as being Puerto Rican and due to not, speaking Spanish and not being familiar with all the things related to Puerto Rico, I too kind of share the same challenges where I felt like people did not understand the culture and country I came from and kind of would mistaken me for something I'm not. I felt like I had to explain about a lot about my culture to people who did not know and for them to understand why I identified as being Asian, even when my last name sounded Spanish, which is, it was very confusing for a lot of people. So the analysis of our cultural difference again during the interview, I kind of like, as we were going back and forth with our cultural differences or similarities, I reflected a lot on my experience when I was in high school, and I felt like I did not kind of belong to any friends group because of my cultural background. Although Dee, did not explicitly say the same things, but I feel like she also somewhat experienced the things I experienced, especially in high school, because in we both went to not the same high school, but went to the same high school in New York City, which, there's a lot of diverse background, particularly immigrant students like myself. However, during that time, my classmates, or like the area where I grew up, it was kind of like my classmates kind of divided themselves with the culture and traditions they share. My high school didn't have a lot of Filipino kids attending the school. So most of the students were from cultures coming from Latin America, Poland, Albanian, and some Asian cultures. So I felt like at some point during that time, it was hard to be true to my culture because I was kind of heavily influenced by other people's cultural backgrounds, and I kind of conformed to that depending on the friend groups that I joined. I remember at some point, I feel like I had to explain so much about being Filipino and where the Philippines is from, and why some Filipinos look very Asian and some doesn't kind of look super Asian, with our the sizes of our eyes or just like our skin tone in general. And it's to the point that I kind of stopped answering people and just kind of joined whatever my friends are doing, whether it's the music taste, food, or anything that's kind of not so Filipino. But obviously, fast forward to now and learning so much more and adapting to, as much as I'm adapting to different cultures, but I'm still, definitely still at that time thinking about it. I feel like I did it as being young. Obviously, I definitely think it was because of the fear in a way of being misunderstood, or just kind of like I don't want to keep explaining myself to people or mistaking for someone I'm not. I remember a guidance counselor pulled me one time and asked me like, "Hey, don't you speak Spanish? You should have native Spanish class." And I told her like I don't fluently speak Spanish. So that's kind of like the misunderstanding there. And obviously at that time now realizing that guidance counselor doesn't have much cultural competent and understanding of different cultures. Anyway, so that's why, kind of like I couldn't fully show my Filipino culture back then, but obviously now is something that I work hard to preserve, especially, with now having kids. I want them to embrace their Filipino side and value the traditions, celebrating the holidays with big gatherings, like authentic Filipino food, and, even also like embracing the Nicaraguan side, the Ecuadorian side, and just truly knowing to accept all of their identity. But overall, I know my identity is a big part of who I am, where I came from, and what I bring out that influences our relationship with the people, my relationship with the people I meet, though the families I meet in my job and the students I meet, but part of my culture, I know for sure, is no matter what, should be to understand and really embrace other people's differences, and yeah, respecting everyone that I encounter. So I definitely strongly adopt that in my practice as a special education teacher for students with disabilities. And reflecting on this week's audio that I listened to from Dr. Beth Harry, I definitely agree with her statement that the key to truly collaborate with students' families, regardless of their cultural background, is respect, right? Respect is a big thing. And it's, as she mentioned, inviting view of parents' perspectives and values in ways that reflect their needs and, to be heard, especially regarding their child's needs. And respect can mean in many ways, whether it's, truly understanding the child, themselves and the family that they came from. For me, it means to value how to best support the parents, the students. In my current school, I have a few students whose parents do not speak English. So my school, does a very great job, and really something that I respect them for is to, like they translate a lot of things of the students' paperwork, whether it's progress report, emails, and other things, they translate it in Spanish. So my school definitely also engages in conversations with parents efficiently. We have a professional translating service that we call whenever we're getting in touch with parents, because they want to be as transparent as they can be with the parents. And so definitely collaboration with families coming from different cultures, backgrounds, and is key to truly making a difference in the students we serve. So as an educator, I strive to be truly culturally competent in my practice and understand that my students' families, values, beliefs, traditions, language, anything related to their identity, not just because they're a student with special needs, but truly them as student as a whole child. And understanding everything about them is what makes us truly culturally competent.